Whether on campus with social distancing or online with virtual learning, area colleges and universities are making adjustments as the fall semester begins, striving to keep students, faculty, and staff safe while the learning continues. A look at how higher education is coping with the challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, coming up now in Living in the New Normal. Hello, I'm Marcia Kavanaugh, and thanks for joining us for the latest installment of Living in the New Normal. In this half hour, we will discuss how higher education in our area is adjusting to the challenges brought on by COVID-19. And with us are Dr. John Nicklow, President of the University of New Orleans, Dr. Reynold Verret, President of Xavier University of Louisiana, Dr. Peter Cho, Executive Dean of the West Bank campus of Delgado Community College, and Michael Fitz, President of Tulane University. I want to thank all of you guys for joining us, taking time out of what I know are real busy schedules to talk about this. Well, the semester has begun. Everybody was wondering, how are we going to do it with the spring semester so abruptly ending? So I'm just going to go around to all of you all just sort of for a quick summary of an idea. How is this new semester going for you all? Dr. Nicola, let's start with you.
Well, the semester started off extremely well. It is certainly different than anything we've experienced before. We missed some of the hustle and bustle on campus, but overall going very well. Roughly 25% of our courses are still face-to-face, another 25% fully online, and the other half are a mix of the two, what we call high flex or hybrid, where there's some face-to-face component, but it may be very minimal. We've had to de-densify classrooms to about 25% capacity, put floor markings on floors to make sure students and employees are social distancing. So it's been very different, but going very well, and so in some ways better than expected.
Okay. President Fitz, let me go over to you. I know that I've seen video. I haven't actually been on campus, but I know that you guys did erect at least some canopies where you're doing some outdoor classes as well. So how's it going over at Tulane?
Yeah. It's going very well. We built a city of literally 13 new classrooms and took a whole lot of different initiatives to, in a sense, support our students on campus. Like John, it's gone very well, but of course, these are unprecedented times, and we're in the first inning of a 9-inning game, as it were. But for us, the way I describe it is a belt and suspenders system. We've tested everybody before they came on campus. We're repeatedly testing everyone on campus once they're here. We have about 75% of our classes are on ground, though they have capacity to be online, about 25% online. But it's a different experience. Everybody's masked, everybody's socially distanced. But I must say the entire community at Tulane, students, faculty, and staff, have really stepped up to the plate in these unprecedented times.
Dr. Verret, over to you. How is Xavier conducting classes? Are you doing in-person, virtual, mix?
We, like Tulane, we're at a mix. Roughly about 30%, 35% of our classes are online. The balance the majority of classes are in person, especially our clinical classes, our laboratories. So it's a mix. What we're finding also is that we were surprised to see that our enrollment held. We've seen some increase in our retention, and that's something surprising because if you had asked me the same thing in early May or June, I would have expected a steep decline. The other piece I think that we're also feeling is also that, especially for the new students, whether it is transfers or freshmen, many of us remain strangers to them because we've only met them remotely on video. So they have not met the dean or sat in a room with the dean or with the president or any of my staff closely. And that's creating some distance that we have to find ways of ameliorating. Walking around campus, but they see us behind masks. So we are learning to do things quite differently. At the same time, I would also emphasize one of the pieces that I think has impressed us is the engagement of students and their willingness to actually take up the behavioral approaches that are quite different. They are masking, with very rare exceptions. And if you call them and say, put your mask on, they will. There are a few exceptions. Also, they are keeping distance. So I think there is a certain level of maturity that we're seeing among our students that we might not have anticipated. We may have underestimated them.
All right, over to you, Dr. Cho. Delgado Community College also, has classes like welding, where it would be kind of difficult to do that virtually at home. But how are you guys working out this new semester?
Well, we're actually doing quite well, like our sister institutions. I'm actually quite surprised that we've done as well as we have been. We're doing approximately 85 to 90% of all of our classes remotely, whether that be via Zoom or via some other remote platform. But we do have around 10% of our classes, including some of the welding classes and those types of things, in person. But we've done a lot to make sure that our students are going to be safe along with our faculty and staff. We're following all of our CDC guidelines, making sure that all of the stations that we use are disinfected all the time. We're making sure that we have at least 6 feet between any possible desks, and they're very clearly marked as well. And our students are also required to wear masks while they're on campus. We're trying to innovate while we make sure that our students get the hands-on education that they need when they are on campus.
Yeah, I know, and that's what all of you all are doing, I know, is trying to keep your students and faculty safe, but still delivering the education that we need. For the three of you, because I'm assuming that Delgado does not have residential students, am I correct on that?
Correct.
For the three that do, UNO, Tulane, and Xavier, could you just sort of quickly tell me, how are you handling that? Let's go with Dr. Nicola first.
Sure. UNO has about 1,300 students on campus, living on campus. The rest are near campus or off. But all of our residence halls are singles. They were already singles. So we actually had to make very little change. What we did do is pull back about 5% of the rooms to make them available for quarantine.
And Dr. Fitz, President Fitz?
So we have about 3,500 students living on campus, and we offered everybody singles if they wanted them, with possibilities of additions downtown hotels. But we have generally depopulated the campus, and as a result of that, I think there are fewer students living close to one another on campus. We've also obviously extra cleaning, extra social distancing on campus, and 100% requirement on mask wearing on campus.
Dr. Verret and Xavier, what are you guys doing?
All of our residences now are single occupancy. What we did was to depopulate the campus. Many of our double rooms became single occupancy rooms. We acquired space downtown in a hotel downtown to put the balance of students. So roughly, the population of students in our residential units are about the same, but we have scattered them and basically spent to actually make sure that they're single occupancy. The other piece that's important is that it also allows us to quarantine students in place because they're already in single occupancy rooms and provide them services if they are exposed.
Okay. Dr. Cho, I'm going to go over to you. You are the executive dean at the West Bank campus at Delgado, and you have been a faculty member over there in the music faculty, from what I understand.
Yes.
I know you're interacting with the faculty, as everybody in this panel. First off, let me go to you. How's faculty responding to this? I mean, they're having to teach in a new way, many of them.
Certainly it was a challenge at the beginning, and I think that we will continue to see some challenges. But certainly our faculty have really risen to the occasion. We had, at the very beginning, we sent out a survey to all of our faculty and staff wanting to know what their concerns were and what their needs were. And those surveys were very revealing, and it certainly gave us what we needed in order to address the issues that they needed, whether it was from a technological standpoint, whether it was from a training standpoint, whether it was from instructional technology that they either did or did not have or needed to know how to use. So we've done a great deal to make sure that our faculty are not only prepared to teach, but that they feel safe and that they can do what they need to do to make sure that our students get the information that they do need. And
I know teachers, I have a family member who's on faculty at Baton Rouge Community College, and she spent months really training for this virtual delivery. So let's go to you, President Fitz. How are your faculty adjusting to this?
So I'm incredibly proud of how they stepped up to the plate in these circumstances. Classrooms don't look anything like they did a year ago. For us, we built in effect, 19 new classrooms, which are large and socially distanced. And then we upgraded technology across the university so that all classes could be both in person and have virtual hybrid opportunities as well. And then we socially distanced. We measured so that no seats were closer than 6 feet, that faculty were at a distance behind plexiglass and wearing masks, and we put in technology for sound. This is a challenging situation to teach in,
Yes,
both in person and people who might be Zooming in. But really, the faculty have handled this extremely well. And again, I'm proud of them.
Dr. Verret?
Well, I would say that one of the things that we had to address very early, besides the capacity of faculty to teach online, we did some intensive coaching for those who needed it, because roughly maybe 20% of our faculty really had, for them it was very new. But also we spent the summer and doing an intensive boot camps for faculty over the summers to help them get the skills that they needed to teach online if necessary. But the other piece that was important in our planning work was to make sure that we not only reassured our students and their parents, but also our faculty and staff that their safety was a major concern. So the emphasis on masking and also on basic hygiene, which is cleaning of tables, but also washing of hands, making sure that even that students and faculty would wipe the tables and space that they use themselves. So that's not just to depend upon staff, but in the between times, everybody wipes before and after they do this. We also made sure that the rules were very clear that basically no masking, you cannot enter a public space or a classroom without a mask, and that was quite clear. And those have been, the clarity of those rules has helped our students and faculty engage in that and do it well. But clearly the safety of all was important, because we understood that there was a lot of apprehension and some fear, because understand our faculty and our staff, many of them, like myself, we're at least over 30, maybe over 50. So I think they saw the risk. The important thing is that basically everyone understood that no one had the privilege to infect anyone else, so everyone wore the mask, so the faculty would feel safe as well.
Dr. Nicklow, over to you and your faculty, but also students. What kind of student feedback are you guys getting?
Sure. It was very difficult in the spring to have to pivot so quickly. But that also allowed us to learn of deficiencies and where we needed training and equipment. So we did surveys at the student level, at the faculty and staff level. We learned a lot from it. We spent, similar to the others, most of the summer doing a lot of training. Today, we have new technology installed in 80 classrooms that allows you to take the course in person on a Monday and sit on the lakefront on Wednesday and take the course. Mm-hmm. And we're supplying hotspots and laptops to students who may not have them, to make sure that there's not a digital divide preventing them from continuing their learning.
And that's really important. We hear about that digital divide, and it is all too real, unfortunately. I know that's a challenge in and of itself right there. So let me ask you this. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Fitz, President Fitz, on this. If you find out that there are COVID positive cases, and we know that there have been really since this semester began, not just at Tulane, but at other universities and colleges too, what are you guys doing about that when that happens?
So, right, great question. Let me underscore, our strategy is to identify COVID positive cases. That's part of sort of our public health protections. What we found is about 90 to 95% of students who develop COVID-19 are asymptomatic. They have no symptoms. So you wouldn't pick it up from temperatures or symptoms that they have COVID-19. So for us, we have a very extensive testing program so that everyone is tested, undergraduates living on campus twice a week. And that identifies positives quickly before they become infectious, before they even know they have the disease. They may never know they have the disease. So for us, we put aside a dorm for positive cases. Students can, in a sense, stay there. There are nurses if they should need them. Food is delivered, but then, in effect, they're isolated for 10 days as part of this. We also are very extensive in contacts. Anybody who had contact with somebody who was positive, and we're quarantining those students as well downtown. What we found is this is a very effective way to get ahead of the disease, because you identify positives before they spread the disease, and our positivity rate is actually plummeted as a result of this this approach and strategy. I think it's a great way, in a sense, to get ahead of it, especially with this age group.
Okay, Dr. Verret, what are you guys doing? Just sort of quickly, if you could tell us. If you see
We had everyone testing at the beginning. So all students and also all faculty and staff before the beginning of the fall term had to report a test within 3 to 4 days of their coming on campus. That did happen. And we identified a small number of people who were positive. Some of them did not come on campus. A few that arrived on campus were tested on campus and were quarantined for the period of time, I believe, 14 days. What we also have done is repeat testing on surveillance. So right in yesterday, we finished another testing round of roughly 10% of our student population. And we're looking to see exactly what the positivity rate on campus is. The other piece that we're enforcing by having real social distance and masking is to preclude anyone who may be infected from spreading the disease to another person because of masking. And that is why we are unambiguous in requiring masking in all circumstances where people are exposed to each other.
Okay, Dr. Nicklow, what about you guys? And I mean, one thing I know that's a challenge too, it's a challenge just out in the community at large, is trying to prevent large groups from gathering. And of course, we have college students who like to get together and have fun. So how are you guys handling that?
Well, the gathering piece is probably our biggest concern. And the president's talked periodically. This is, if something goes awry, this is probably the reason. But we've also been very clear with our students and our entire community that it's not going to be tolerated. So we now have in both our employee code of conduct and our student code of conduct protocols that must be followed. We report, yesterday I had a small dinner party of 4 people. It was reported. And so we'll talk to those students that shouldn't have occurred in one place in the way it did. But we are seeking input from our campus community. See something, say something, and that we'll address it in accordance with the student code of conduct.
You know, this pandemic, of course, has presented challenges just to everyday life all across the board, but it's I know, really presented huge challenges, just more than what we've just been talking about in conducting schools and having people on campus or not, but other ones too. And colleges and universities across the country have been facing challenges, and lately. So, what extra challenge did this bring? Like in terms of enrollment, how are you seeing enrollment? President Fitz, your enrollment.
Our enrollment is actually the highest it's ever been. What we found was in terms of our starting first-year class, the yield on our offers was the highest in the history of Tulane. And when I talk to students, they want to be on ground. They want to be part of that experience. So our, in a sense, coming back has proved to be very successful. Now, there are certainly some students who want to study remotely. We have a group of students that are actually in China who couldn't get visas. So we have, in a sense, a menu of opportunities for our students. But what we found is indeed this has been it has attracted students to Tulane during this pandemic.
Dr. Veret, how's your enrollment looking?
Our enrollment, first of all, I think we just got the report. We would be at our census date tomorrow, but thus far we are actually at the level slightly above where we were last year. We're also seeing retention, which means the percentage of students who come from their first year, who go into their second year, has jumped significantly, and we'll be reporting that. Part of that may be because we've been able to apply other financial aid, because one of the challenges we've had is that many of the students who were in good situations, their families were in situations where they could afford and pay their tuition in some ways. Last fall, we're in different conditions, so we had to apply other financial aid resources to make that possible. That may be helping. We've even noticed at the graduate level, numbers had risen, and probably because people are seeing these as opportunities to actually raise their abilities and their acquire new skills.
All right. University of New Orleans has always faced its funding problems. I know I'm a UNO alum, and LSU UNO alum, actually, so that's going back a ways. How is this, impacting your enrollment, and then also concerns about funding for the public university?
Sure.
Dr. Nicola.
Sure. Thank you, Marcia. I think 5 months ago, 6 months ago, I was very worried, as all presidents were, that this was going to just kill our enrollment across the country. Yesterday was our census date. We're actually up 2%. And the biggest highlight, we're up 25% in freshmen from New Orleans, which is incredible. I think more students chose to stay home, closer to home, and that worked for us. So that's obviously good financially. We do get about a quarter of our budget from the state, and that obviously there is concern. We were able to get by with minimal impact this year, and the state supported this with some federal dollars. But the worry is next year in terms of the economic recovery. So that's on my mind. The other aspect with our budget is all of our concerts and events and bookings and athletics is postponed. It's gone. And a lot of people don't realize the amount of supplemental auxiliary revenue that is used to supplement the academic operation.
All right, real quick now, because we are, believe it or not, going to have to start wrapping up this conversation. It goes by quick. Dr. Cho, let's bring you in. Enrollment, just quickly, you could tell us for Delgado, and then let's get to how is this going to impact the future, this whole new change. How is it going to impact the future of higher ed?
Sure. I think that the pandemic is really going to affect the future of higher ed in that we have to be flexible and meet the needs of our students. I think that what this is showing and what enrollment across the board with all our sister institutions is showing is that there is the need for continued higher education in many different forms and many different shapes. And I think that's one of the things that we're going to learn from this is that how do we actually meet the challenges in the future for our students? I know specifically we're going to need a lot of scientists. We're going to need a lot of researchers. We're going to need a lot of allied health professionals and the such. And I think that the key is how are we going to actually meet that challenge once the pandemic is over and being able to be flexible enough to plan for that.
All right. President Fitz, over to you. How do you think this is going to impact the future of higher ed?
So let me just say the society is going to be different after this pandemic, and educational institutions are in the business of educating the next generation. And these are the people who will be more adaptable and sort of jump into the breach of what will be a different world. So I think the role of higher education has never been more important. I think there have been a lot of stories about predictions about how this would impact higher education. As you can see from the universities in New Orleans, we've done very well. And part of that story is obviously some institutions, especially hospitality, conventions, hotels, have not fared as well in this environment. And maybe the takeaway here is that higher education has, at least over the short run, fared well. And we have not seen the layoffs and the impact over the short run that other institutions have. And that's great for New Orleans.
All righty. Quickly, Dr. Nicklow, real quick thoughts from you.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I would add that this whole thing has brought our presidents and chancellors close together. We meet biweekly, we coordinate, and that's not something that happened previously. So that's a silver lining, and I hope that will continue and we become more together as a higher ed community in New Orleans.
Okay. And Dr. Verret, last thoughts from you.
Well, I guess the last thought that in these conversations that we've been having, especially as presidents, brought us back to conversations that began even in the years before about New Orleans being an education destination. In many ways, we think of our major linchpins of our economies like the tourism industry, hospitality, but higher ed is becoming a key part of the New Orleans economy. And we have many of the pieces here and the elements here to make New Orleans an education destination, diversity of institutions that offer that. And also, New Orleans is one of the cities where people would want to come and learn and be attached to. So it's an opportunity for the city if we learn from this moment and then manage it going forward.
Thank you all so much. We're going to wrap up this discussion now. Thanks again for taking the time to join us and tell the community what's going on at your institutions. And thanks for working so hard to make sure that our young people are getting that higher education that is so important for the growth of our community. Thank you very much. And hopefully maybe we'll get a chance to catch up with you again sometime next year and see how it goes. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, education at all levels from pre-K through college has had to turn to virtual learning to reach students. It's a big difference for many, but can also expand learning opportunities, according to former university professor and STEM NOLA founder, Dr. Calvin Mackey.
Hi, I'm Dr. Calvin Mackey of STEM NOLA, and today I'd like to talk to you about how COVID has impacted our world. We have the opportunity to change the world as we know it due to COVID. And I hope that the education community, K-12 as well as higher education, understand that COVID has offered us the opportunity to change how we create, deliver pedagogy and content. At STEM NOLA, we've engaged over 50,000 kids in hands-on activities, but this summer we had to pivot and we engaged thousands of kids online in 34 states and in 4 countries, including Ghana. And from that activity, there's 3 things I think that COVID has allowed the education apparatus to understand what it needs to do going forward. First and foremost, we have to understand that we are educating students in an interconnected world. When we had all of those students online virtually, it was clear, as Booker T. Washington said, we are separate as the fingers, but as whole as the hand. All of those kids were from different backgrounds, different places in the world, but they were able to communicate with each other and understood that it was necessary for them to have skills, but they also needed to have a sensitivity to the world in which they live. The second thing COVID has presented us with the opportunity to do, that's redefine the role of the educator and the professor. It's not just enough to deliver content, but we have to be also the developer of people. And also educators and professors must meet people where they are. And what COVID has shown us is that the students that's before us are coming from all different type of backgrounds, socially and economically. So we have to be prepared for that. So we have to prepare our educators and teachers in a new way. And lastly, and all of us are very clear with this, COVID has presented us with the opportunity to unlock technology to deliver education in a way that we thought it may be 10, 20 years away. Of course, all online tools are not good, and we also have to protect the person-led instruction of the classroom because of its intimacy and its immediacy. However, we have to expand that and use technology to reach students where they are. I have 2 sons of my own, both of them in high school, and they said, "Dad, we love this possibility because I can learn wherever I am." And we have to understand, just because a kid can learn wherever they are, that doesn't mean that they don't need the intimacy of interacting with a person. So that means this blended model is here to stay. We must work to make sure this blended model works for everyone. Education in the 21st century, let's make it different. And if we're gonna thank COVID for something, let's thank COVID for this opportunity to giving us the chance to reset education for everyone. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Mackey. Also, big thanks to our panel. And be sure to join us for the next installment of Living in the New Normal as we continue to explore how we are adjusting to the changes that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought to our everyday lives. Thanks for watching.